Joan. Clarence Holnig was scheduled to speak next, but could not be here. I wanted to share with you just a brief message that he had sent to Bob, which simply says, Pat and I will not be able to attend Gloria's memorial this afternoon. Pat is not feeling well. The recent passing of our neighbor Sandy Sandholtz and now Gloria has been very hard on her. But this is what Clarence prepared. Gloria Retzloff Taylor, grassroots Gloria, fiercely independent, uniquely talented, always civic-minded, volunteered in 1971 to be both precinct captain and coordinator for the first in California Livermore Save Growth Control Initiative. At the time, the San Francisco Chronicle reported Tri-Valley growing by leaps and bounds. Virtually all elementary schools were on double sessions. It took 90 days to build houses and more than 2+ years to build a school. Zone 7 projected that growth demands would exceed water treatment capacity by over 90% in just 2 years. A sewage release created a crisis in our arroyos because of plant overloading. The Regional Water Quality Board declared a moratorium on all new building hookups in the west end of the valley. Valley air pollution frequently exceeded both state and federal standards. Gloria, along with many valley parents, was concerned about how breakneck residential growth was affecting the quality of life in her community. She organized a door-to-door drive to collect the signatures needed to qualify SAVE for the ballot box. With Gloria's enthusiasm and encouragement, a large number of like-minded volunteers collected an overwhelming number of signatures to meet that qualification. The initiative was ultimately approved by the voters in both Livermore and Pleasanton by very comfortable margins. 5 years later, the California Supreme Court, by a 5-2 decision, upheld SAVE and the right of citizens in general law cities to enact growth controls by the initiative process. This grassroots initiative would not have been possible without the dedicated efforts of citizens like Gloria. Her good friend Don Miller, who will...
Interest in beauty. I've been known to say that Gloria could put on a burlap sack and she'd look great. We'd all say, wow. Perhaps it was an attitude she exuded, but whatever it was, she seemed to create an amazingly attractive aura wherever she went. Whatever it was, I envied her ability to perform this magic. In more recent years, I would see Gloria nearly every month as part of an antique and history group. I guess a lot of people don't realize this was just one more circle that Gloria traveled in. Gloria had a love of antiques, and in her magical way, she could spot among the discards in a thrift shop priceless antiques that she would purchase for only dollars. Gloria presented some interesting programs to our group over the years, and I especially remember one on Scottish tartans. I could see how, with her eye for color and pattern, that she would be attracted to these hundreds of varied plaids, each one so different. She became enamored with them and decorated the cabin in the mountains with a multitude of plaids. Often at these meetings, we brought items to share when other members gave talks. One time I gave a program on hats, and the members each wore an interesting hat. But you might know, Gloria showed up in a big black top hat like Abraham Lincoln. Knowing her, she probably drove wearing it all the way to my house. I also recall that at one of our Christmas parties, she showed up in an authentic Norwegian costume, which added something even more festive to the evening. Gloria had also been in charge of our invitations several times over the past years, and one year she did them all by hand, sending each member every month one of her watercolors. These were really special. Over these years, I think little bits and pieces of Gloria have rubbed off on me, and I've held on to them like gifts. Thinking outside of the box, knowing that there are rewards that come with the creativity one must use in being resourceful. Realizing that there are many vantage points from which to view everyday things. These are only some that come to mind. I know in my heart that Gloria knew that I loved all of this about her, and in this way we were kindred spirits. But I will say it again, thanks, Gloria. Thank you.
At times like this, I like to think back to my earliest memories. It may be because the more recent ones are more difficult, but it may also be because we probably share more of the recent ones. I had interviewed at the lab in 1966, and one of the people who I got to talk to that day was Bob Taylor, who had only been at the laboratory for a year, but I really related to him, and but not quite enough because I turned the job down. Came back 2 years later, and one of the first people I met was Bob, and it was within a few weeks that we had met Gloria and the children. We did a lot of things together. We shared a love of sailing. We have both had children. We had Bob and Gloria had 2 boys, of course. We had 3 girls, and Gloria always had a passion for girls, and she now has many of them. By the way, Susan and I now have only grandsons. But there are two thoughts I want to share with you. One is that one of those daughters, who is Noah's age and is a good friend of Noah's, has a particular talent for art. And Gloria had a way of touching people. And I think someone said, I think it was Don Miller, we'll see her for a long time to come, and her influences. Gloria took this very talented daughter of ours and mentored her. And she now, in addition to raising her family, does art therapy with terminal cancer patients at Stanford. And I know that's at least partly because of Gloria. The other thing I remember is after the Taylors put the vineyard in and were selling the grapes, Gloria called us up one day and said, you know, I was over in the Kincannon vineyard, and the Petite Syrah has had a second bloom. This is the 1st of December. And why don't we go out and pick it? And they were little bunches. And so Bob and I and Gloria and Susan went out, picked barrels of grapes, came back into what was then the smaller barn, and Bob got in a plastic garbage pail and stomped them with his feet. And we went, and Bob and I, while Sue and Gloria made dinner, Bob and I went down in the basement and started the process, and we would get together every couple of weeks and do the next thing. And I remember it was so cold we couldn't get the fermentation started, and we had to go to the East Avenue hardware store to borrow some heating tapes to get things moving. I still have some of that wine. It's a lovely Petite Syrah. I think its date was 85, if I remember correctly, Robert. But shortly thereafter, Gloria said, you know, they're doing wine judging of amateur wines at the Alameda County Fair. Why don't you go over and, you know, I've given them your name and judge some of that. To make a long story short, I ran into someone there who said they're starting wine judging again at the California State Fair, and they have an exam. And so I said, what the heck? And I took this exam, and so I still am a judge at the commercial competition now in the California State Fair, and that would have never happened if it hadn't been for Gloria. That's the kind of person she is. So that's a couple of personal vignettes. Thank you, Gloria.